Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. It's Dr. G, and today I would like to talk with you about some truths about fear. And these have been inspired by Susan Jeffers and her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I also want to talk with you about vulnerability and how vulnerability actually leads to courage. And those points are from Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. All right, so let's start with the story. So I have a friend. My friend is extremely talented. She can look at a Pinterest post and she can completely recreate that thing to the T. She can conceptualize in her mind an elaborate occasion, plan it down to the final details, and leaves no stone unturned and makes it absolutely fabulous for the person of honor. She can do this effortlessly, it seems. She has a talent, a knack for that type of thing. When asked why does she not do this and make money for it, there are certain things that are holding her back. For example, she believes and strongly that no one will hire her. She also believes that she does not have the skill to run a business and make it profitable. She thinks she is not ready, or she needs to have several more events under her belt before she can actually go out on her own. She thinks that she is going to fail. So she has a case of the when, then. Okay, what on earth are you talking about, Dr. G? All right, Susan Jeffers talks about this, and she says that, in her own life, she's experienced this, and she's also noticed it with all the people that she's encountered over the years. And there's always a common theme. It seems that we always have this a conditional statement that we are abiding by and clutching to it with such great vigor. And it is, when blank happens, then I'll be ready to do the thing. Why do we do this? We do this because we always feel like we're just not ready. We feel like we need so many more things to happen for us. We need to have so many more experiences before we can actually do the thing that we dare to dream about. So, we ask ourselves these questions. We make this conditional statement. But in fact, my friend, who I was referring to, is more than ready to go for it. She has everything that she needs. And to be honest, even if she doesn't have something, she has resources that she can reach out to and get that thing done. She can literally jump and fly on the way down. But what is holding her back? What's holding her back is her mindset. Okay, so she's stuck in her own mind. She erroneously believes to her core that fear is starting to get in the way. All right, so her mental mind track or soundtrack is completely off. And so this is holding her back. And actually, instead of sending her on a pathway for success, which is where she is destined to travel, she's instead going down a pathway of failure. And why is it failure? It's failure because she never launches. She has not launched. And so this is a failure because she has potential. And I would say it would be, let's see, going back to my days of physics, and feel free to correct me if I'm not right, but she has potential energy that is dying, and I mean dying, to become kinetic energy. And the reason why there's not a transformation of energy sources is because she has been caught up in the negative soundtrack, in the, oh no, I need to have this happen. And when that happens, then I'll be ready to launch my business. We can't do that. When we do that, we completely do ourselves a disservice because we are unique. We have what our tribe needs. And when we hold back, when we stop ourselves from moving forward, taking chances, putting ourselves out there, our tribe is not getting our uniqueness and they are not benefiting. So it's almost our fear or our listening to negative soundtracks is actually holding back the progress of our tribe. They're waiting for us. They want to hear what we have to say. They want to grow through us. And when we have a talent like my friend has, and we don't put it out there, we are depriving our tribe of having that. Oh my goodness. So that brings me to a couple of truths. So Susan Jeffers very astutely describes these in great detail in the book that I mentioned. And the first truth that she says is the fear will go away as long as I continue to grow. All right, so this is a truth. And she goes so far as to say, as long as I continue to push out into the world, as long as I continue to stretch my capabilities, as long as I continue to take risks in making my dreams come true, I am going to experience fear. Okay, that might be bad news to a lot of people. I thought you said that if I went out there and did it, I would have no fear. No, the fear really doesn't go away. So you all know that I have a fear of public speaking. You all know that I am trying to combat that fear in a very active fashion by doing things that are going to allow me to speak more in front of more people. So this podcast, for example, is one modality through which I am facing my fear of public speaking. Another modality is I do live stream videos on Instagram and on Facebook. And in those situations, I am speaking to an audience. I also am a public speaker. So I will get on stage and speak in front of large numbers of people. So do I still have fear? Yes, every single time. I have fear before going on stage. I have fear before starting a podcast episode. I have fear before starting a live stream. But what happens? The more you do the thing, the more you continue to grow, and the fear just doesn't go away. But what happens to it? It becomes less and less intense. So a few episodes ago, I described to you guys that right before I would go on stage to give a speech, I would have a couple of things happen to me physically. I would literally not be able to sleep the night before. I would be ruminating on the talk, on the negatives that could potentially happen during the talk. And then right before, I would literally have items running through my mind like, oh my God, you have a big piece of spinach in your teeth, and the audience is going to focus on that, and you're not going to focus on what you're saying. Oh my God, you're going to fall and break your face on the stage, and you're going to be a bloody mess. It's going to be blood on your suit, blood on your face. Oh my God, you are going to forget every single thing that you're supposed to say. And on top of that, the slides are going to go kaput. All the things. My heartbeat would be rapid. My palms would be sweaty. My underarms would be sweaty. Literally, I would be a hot, sweaty mess. You'd think that I was going through menopause. I mean, crazy stuff. And not that I'm that far from menopause, though, by the way. um, but, all these visceral things are happening, and it was thwarting me. It was holding me back. And it wasn't until I said to myself, you know what? This is not going to work. This is not normal. I am going to do something about it. And took actions towards moving forward, realizing that the fear will always be there, and knowing that the more you do the thing is the better you will be at it, because every time you put yourself out there, vulnerability, every time you take a risk, also vulnerability, you will grow. Whenever you cross that line in the sand between comfort and outside of comfort zone, there will be growth. Now, the more you do it, the bigger you do it, is the more rapid and great the growth. So when Susan Jeffers talks about, that the truth is the fear will never go away as long as it continues to grow, she is so right. I have experienced this firsthand in the last couple of years as I've been facing this fear of public speaking. I can recall to some other circumstances in my life where I felt fear, and I have basically minimized its intensity by doing the thing more. So, another example of that. All right, so I get done with medical school and I am super excited. I get into residency. I get ready to get going. So, day one of residency, I am now Dr. Gregory. Okay, so people are looking to me for the answers. And I no longer have the crutch of being the medical student and being able to ask my resident for help, right? So I get my first patient and I'm working the patient up, and I am to the point now where I have to put orders in. And I am concerned about writing my first orders, right? Because now I am writing orders and there is direct accountability associated with those. So I'm writing my orders and I have to write orders for pain medication. So I very nervously write an order for morphine. Oh my God, never written an order for morphine before. What could happen if I give this patient morphine? What happens if they, stop breathing as a consequence of it? Like, will they become addicted to this medicine? All of these fears run through my mind. And come to find out that the dose of morphine that I gave was a complete baby dose for the situation, and I would have done no harm to the patient, etc. But I had that fear, I had the fear when I walked into the first resuscitation in the emergency department that I had to take an active role in leading. And I knew that, I had to make good decisions on the fly because the patient's life depends on it. And I was afraid, there's no doubt. Despite the fact that I have the training, despite the fact that I have the backup, because this is residency, so there are attending doctors and lots of support. Despite all of that, I definitely had that mentality like, oh my God, am I really doing this? Somebody's life is really in my hands. I felt that fear and it was intense. And today, when I'm writing for pain medication or I am writing for another kind of medicine that's going to help a patient in the acute phase, or I am standing in a resuscitation and I am currently overseeing a resident doctor who is, basically testing out their wings. it is still a fear. There's still a situation where I am feeling fear, but the intensity of it is so minuscule because of the many times that I've been in that situation and the many times that I have taken an action. There have been many, many, many resuscitations in my 15-year career, and there have been many, many times that I have written for morphine. So you can tell that no matter the scenario, right? So I gave you the scenario of me and my fear of public speaking, but I also gave you a real life scenario. So whatever your job is, whatever your your life situation is, there is the space for fear to play a role. So I told you that my friend has a fear essentially of launching. And despite the fact that she has the skills necessary to be extremely successful, she is letting the when thens happen to her. When I have more experience, then I will do the thing. When I have more people interested in being clients, then I'll do the thing. Instead of, I'm going to do the thing and the clients will come. You know, kind of like the Field of Dreams analogy when he says in the movie, you know, you build it, they will come. That is so true for real life. You build it, they will come. You step out on fear, you step out and do the thing anyway. The fear won't go away, but guess what? You will grow immensely and people will see that. People are always looking for positives, right? There's been so much negative in this world. People are looking for positives. So when you grow, when you do the thing and you're vulnerable, it just makes all the difference to those around you, those in your network. And it just impacts so many more lives than you can even imagine. So forget about it. If you're like on social media, it's even more intense these days. But your immediate network will be greatly affected if you're not on social media. So just think about it as almost like a what do you call it, philanthropic act, right? So instead of it just benefiting you and your growth, it will also benefit your entire sphere, everybody who's connected to you and people who are even connected to them, because people will share things that they think are positive and impactful with other people in their networks. So there you have it. All right. So then the second truth that Susan Jeffer shares is the only way to get rid of fear of doing something is to go out and do it. Oh my. So, you know, this is really true, right? So I told you that I basically realized that this was a crippling fear. This was something that was the public speaking issue was a crippling fear, was something that was essentially holding me back. Because if you think about it, for me, my vocation, you know, as an emergency physician in at night in the department, I have to practice public speaking skills constantly when I am speaking to my patients, when I'm speaking to the resident doctors, when I'm speaking to the care team, consultants, when I am speaking to families, when I'm transferring patients, when I'm doing so many things. Like every aspect of my job has a lot to do with public speaking. Now, it is not the public speaking that I have in my mind developed a fear for, right? Because that's what I just described, the everyday actions that I take at work, that has become part of me, right? So that has just basically, I've become acclimated to that and I've basically become better at that over the years, right? So, you know, it was the formal situations where I am having to get on a stage in front of folks and share. And it is definitely, I will say though, that yes, that is true. That is the paramount thing. But then what I've noticed lately is that when I'm having to have a difficult conversation, so whether it is a difficult conversation that will be I'm trying to get or advocate for a patient's benefit, their disposition, their trajectory within the hospital or outside of the hospital. When I'm having a difficult conversation with someone who may not necessarily be professional or is having a negative interaction with me, I found that the little fear that I described starts creeping in, right? So, what does it manifest itself as? Palpitations. It manifests itself as me turning bright red. And I don't know if you guys know, well, you probably don't, but maybe you've seen the photo of me, but like I am a brown person. And so I still turn red, which is hilarious. And I know this. Like, so when I'm in a conversation or an interaction and I feel my heart starting to beat rapidly and I feel the blood rushing north and occupying my entire face, including my ears, which seem to be predominantly affected by this, I know. I'm like, oh, okay. So that is my litmus test that says, you are encountering a space where you're fearful. And I have to check myself and really take a deep breath and just remember that, yes, this is a space where I am not in my comfort zone, but I need to do this because the patient needs to go X, or we need to resolve this face to face so that we can progress in our professional lives. Whatever the situation that is surrounding the difficult conversation, I know I have to do it. So it is that truth again, right? The only way to get rid of fear of doing something is to go out and do it. So there you have it. So I am doing a podcast. I do live streams. I have difficult conversations despite the fact that I really don't feel comfortable with them. And I get on stages and share my heart with audiences. All right. So those are two truths I wanted to share with you guys today. The other thing I want to talk about very briefly is vulnerability, right? And so in Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead, she talks a lot about how to be a leader that has courage, we really have to be vulnerable. And I don't know about you, but when I think about vulnerability, when I think about somebody that is vulnerable, we often think about them being weak, right? Like we think, oh, that's a vulnerable person, like they're exposed, they are out there on their own in the middle of the desert and they're not wearing any clothing because they're completely and utterly exposed and vulnerable to the elements, right? So that's what I think about. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I think about. And when we really dissect what vulnerability is, then we realize that vulnerability really isn't a weakness. Vulnerability actually is a strength and is a stepping stone to courage. And, she talks about this and she says that, basically to feel is to be vulnerable, right? So we are emotional beings as humans, and we have feelings. We have all kinds of feelings. We feel pain. We feel fear. We feel shame, grief, disappointment, sadness. But we also feel happiness, joy, love, belonging, right? And so to feel is to be vulnerable. This is directly from her book. Believing that vulnerability is weakness is believing that feeling is weakness. And like it or not, we're emotional beings. So when we realize that vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and joy, we know that vulnerability is the cornerstone of courage building, but we often fail to realize that without vulnerability, there is no creativity, or innovation. All right. And she goes on to say, well, why? Why is that? Why would that be the case? Well, because there's no more uncertain, there's nothing more uncertain than the creative process, right? And there is absolutely no innovation without failure. Boom, mic drop. I mean, really. Because if you think about the times when you have been most creative in your own life and you have had breakthroughs in that regard, you literally have been vulnerable. You've been exposed. You have been given the license to take risks. I think about my children, and when they are thinking of a story or they are drawing a picture, they have no boundaries. Their minds are free to take risks. They'll draw a purple sky. They will draw, something that you would not necessarily think is, a real thing. But in their minds, they have the license to take risks. They are not afraid to feel, and they are not afraid to be vulnerable. And in return, there is an amazing creative process that happens because they're not afraid to fail, right? They are free to dream. And so I just wanted to talk with you guys about these items. And I hope that this was encouraging content for you. And I hope that you will take these truths and realize that, whatever the when then is for you, that you can just put that to the side and just go for it, because you can be vulnerable. You can take risks. You can step over that line into the discomfort zone, right? And you can take those risks that will allow for your creativity to shine, that will allow for you to grow the most. And as soon as you realize that, there's not going to be a time when the fear is going to be completely gone, then you will completely soar. You will soar so high and you will have such great success. And I cannot wait to hear about it. So I have shared with you guys my journey. I try my best to be open about it, and in the hopes that someone else will benefit from that they will, be in a place where they may want to take that step forward, and they will just do it because, like I said, your tribe is waiting for you. Your tribe is waiting for you to step out on faith, to take the risk, to not wait and do the when then dance or play the when then game, but instead embrace your emotions and make it happen. So that is all I have for you guys today. Quick recap. The two truths are: truth number one is the fear will never go away as long as I continue to grow. And truth number two is the only way to get rid of fear of doing something is to go out and do it. And then the final thought is we are vulnerable beings because we're emotional beings. And facing our vulnerability, utilizing that vulnerability is the pathway to courage and is the pathway to emerging victoriously by facing our fears and coming out on the other side. Amazing individuals, the same individuals that your tribe so desperately needs you to be. All right, so I hope that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness. Have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.